Hi, I am Nurul Hamiza and I will be presenting for Case 1 Question 1A. The requirement for Question 1A is to advise NUCO on the following issues from the perspective of taxation, whether to choose setting up a branch or subsidiary in Malaysia. Subsidiary is considered as a tax resident in Malaysia, while branch is not considered as a tax resident in Malaysia. Even though both a branch and subsidiary have the same tax rate, but the benefits received by both of them are different. Subsidiary is liable to local taxes, but at the same time also receive various benefits, tax benefits, and also deductions such as double deduction taxation relief. On the other hand, branch is liable for corporate tax, but only from the profit that is obtained through activities from or in Malaysia for the purpose of taxation in Malaysia. Therefore, we can conclude that a NUCO should set up a subsidiary instead of a branch since it will receive more tax benefits compared to a branch.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Madiha binti Mustizan and I will be presenting Case 1, Question 1B, whether to commence business during financial ended 31st December 2019 or 2020. Rectin should commence business during the financial year ended 31st December 2020. This is because on 1st July 2020, any foreign companies that relocate their business operations into Malaysia in the manufacturing industry will be taxed at a rate of 0%. Provided that the companies relocate and commence their operation within 1 year from the date of approval. Besides, in the year assessment 2020, companies with paid-up capital not more than 2.5 million ringgit will be charged tax rate by 17% on the first 600,000 ringgit of the total income, and the subsequent balance will be charged at 24%, which is less than tax to be paid for the year assessment 2019. Moving on to question 1C, the best tax incentives that can significantly reduce its tax liability after finish claiming investment tax allowance. State your reason. The best tax incentive that can significantly reduce its tax liability after finishing claiming investment tax allowance is the reinvestment allowance. This incentive is considered as a second round incentive for the company which had exited from the tax holiday of pioneer status or investment tax allowance. This incentive is available for manufacturing and agriculture project companies which are applied to NUCO since it is related to the manufacturing business. The condition that must be applied to receive this incentive is to be a resident company where they had incurred qualifying expenditure, either expansion, modernizing, or automating, or they had diversified its existing manufacturing business within the same industry and had been in the manufacturing operation for at least 36 months.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Nur Fazurin and I'll be proceed with the question 2. So first, question A, advise PAMCA on disposal of its machinery in terms of timing, assuming all machine will be disposed of to external parties except for a stamping machine, and state demand of disposal. So the answer is, if residual expenditure value is more than the selling price, a balancing allowance is obtained. This suggests that the asset should be disposed of at the end of the year instead of the following year to obtain a balancing allowance that shelters the adjusted income. On the other hand, if the residual expenditure value is smaller than the selling price, a balancing charge is obtained. This suggests that the disposal of asset should be made in the following year instead of the end of the year to defer the tax liability. So since the financial year end is on 31st March 2021, PAMCA Sendirian Berhad can dispose of the old machinery in March 2021 because the accountant is of the view that the machine will have to be sold at a loss. Okay, next, question B. So the question is, advise PAMCA on how to save tax on disposal of the stamping machine. So the answer is, PAMCA Sendirian Berhad can save tax on the disposal of the stamping machine by dispose it after 2 years of acquisition. This is because if Pamka Sendirian Berhad dispose the stamping machines within 2 years of acquisition, the tax authority is empowered to claw back the capital allowance claimed in previous years and treat it as a balancing charge in the year of disposal. Hence, since Pamka Sendirian Berhad purchased the stamping machine on 1st June 2019, they may dispose of it on 31st May 2021, which is after the 2 years of acquisition.
I am Nurul Atira. I will be presenting case 2, question 2C. So, according to the question, state whether Dalmo Group of Company can make use of group relief to reduce the tax liability in year assessment 2020 and 2021. So, the answer, group relief when 70% of current year business loss of a surrendering company can be surrendered to its related company within the group. Tax losses of a company may be utilized to set off with the aggregate income of another company within the same group. Okay, so these are the conditions to be applied for the group relief. First, both claimant and surrendering company must be resident. Next, it must have paid up capital more than 2.5 million at the beginning of basis periods. After that, it must have the same 12 months accounting period. And then it is not currently enjoying any incentives such as investment tax allowance, pioneer status, reinvestment allowance. Next, the claimant must have aggregate income at the year assessment, in that year assessment. So, and lastly, surrendering companies and claimant companies must be subjected to tax at full tax rate, which is 24%. So, in year assessment 2020 and 2021, Dalmo Group of Company cannot make use of group relief to reduce its tax liability with the Pamka Berhad because its paid up capital is less than 2.5 million.
Next, we proceed with question D. The question is, advise Rubah Sendirian Berhad on the best method of financing its purchase of new machineries and state your reason. So from the case above, Rubah Sendirian Berhad could decide whether to use leasing or long-term loan method to purchase the new machinery. So if using leasing, the company is not entitled to claim capital allowance on the lease asset since they do not have ownership over the lease asset, but they entitled to claim the full leasing charges as revenue expense if incurred wholly and exclusively in production of the income of the company. If using a long-term loan, capital allowance can be claimed based on the full cost of qualifying asset. The company also entitled to claim initial allowance and annual allowance on the first year and annual allowance for subsequent year until full relief is given for the qualifying capital expenditure. Therefore, Rubah Sendirian Berhad may use the leasing method since the full amount of leasing charges may be claimed more than the total capital allowance that can be claimed through a long-term loan. This is because the claim of the capital allowance need to be spread to various years in accordance with the specific rate.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Nabila Huda and I am going to explain question 2E, which is advice Damsi Sendirian Berhad on which company should be taken over, TST Sendirian Berhad or KY Sendirian Berhad, and the method of acquisition. State your reason. So for this question, Damsi Sendirian Berhad has the option whether to acquire the company either by acquiring assets or acquiring shares. And if by acquiring share acquisition methods, any tax attributes such as tax incentive and absorbed tax losses and unutilized capital allowance remain with the target company, and the companies are allowed to carry forward an absorbed loss and capital allowance to be set off against future business income, and even companies that cease operation for several years still can set off against new business income. And if they choose to use the asset acquisition method, any tax attributes such as tax incentive and absorbed tax losses and also capital allowance may not be transferred to the acquiring company and remain with the target company unless it is under the control transfer. If any condition for control transfer exists, the acquirer can claim for annual allowance based on the remaining tax written down value. Okay, next, if Damsis Sendirian Berhad want to acquire TSG Sdn Bhd to enjoy group relief by acquiring shares more than 70% of shareholding. They cannot enjoy the group relief because TSG Sdn Bhd are claiming its first year of pioneer status. However, after finish claiming the pioneer status for 5 years, Damsi Sdn Bhd can enjoy group relief in case of unabsorbed loss. And even if the Damsi Sdn Bhd acquire TSG Sdn Bhd, the SG still can enjoy the tax attributes such as the incentive, unabsorbed tax loss, and also capital allowance after the acquisition. Next, if Damsi Sdn Bhd want to acquire KY Sdn Bhd by acquiring shares, they should not acquire the company more than 50% of the shareholding because KY Sdn Bhd is a dormant company, and acquisition more than 50% will disregard all the unabsorbed loss and capital allowance. Thus, if Damsi Sdn Bhd cannot acquire more than 70%, thus Damsi Sdn Bhd cannot enjoy the group relief tax since the shareholding less than 17%. So, the decision is to acquire TSG Sdn Bhd using the share acquisition method. That's all from me. Thank you.